Hi everyone, welcome to another video on the direct 3-3 invasion. In previous videos, we talked about White's Hane, but as we discussed, this is mostly outdated, and I covered everything you need to know about this Hane in the previous videos. Whether you're a beginner, Q player, or even dumb player, I think I covered most, if not all there is to know about this move. And now let's get to the complicated parts. That's the AI Josekis. But this is also where the pedagogy gets a little tricky. So far, what we've done is that for each basic Joseki, I would introduce the most basic variation and then go into details about some of the fights, right? Not all of the fights, but some of the key fights and how it might play out. But after number 7, there are many ways that the variations can go, the Josekis can go. And it's very important for beginners and Q players to know the basics and understand a little bit of the why. If I explain everything about the why, then it will get really complicated. So I think for this video, I'll introduce a few basic patterns without going too deep into the subsequent moves. I'll just tell you this is one way to settle the shape. And you can just take it as face value and accept it for now. But we will dive quite deep into each of the follow-ups to these so-called settled shapes or variations in the next few videos. So as we mentioned before, White has a few choices after Black's crawl: A, B, or C. Some books even cover D, but it's kind of a strange move. We might mention it at the very end, but it's not something you need to worry about. So A, B, and C. We already talked about A, so just B and C. White, of course, can extend, and I introduced this early on as a safe haven for beginners. If you're a beginner, if you're unsure what to do as White in this situation, you just extend. So after Black extends again at number 9, you can keep extending. This can be considered Joseki. It's slightly better for Black, but White really has no flaws in this shape. It's very strong. White can either play on the left side to strengthen the side, or play on the 4th line, something like this. So Black will take the corner, Black has a solid shape, and White gets the outside. But this is not a basic shape according to AI, right? So this is not technically a standard Joseki, but it's totally playable. It's something I would recommend to beginners. But let's talk about AI Joseki. So after number 8, if Black cross here, then White can Hane. Right? This is the optimal move for White. And Black can play the Hane on the 2nd line. So now, to finish the Joseki, White can keep playing on the 3rd line, 12 and 14. But the downside to this is that Black has sente. Black can play elsewhere. And having sente is really important in the eyes of AI. So what if White wants to gain sente from this variation? Then White will have to ignore Black after number 11. So this is one way for White to play. So you're going to see this a lot in amateur games and professional games. White takes sente after Black's number 11. And how does Black finish the shape? Usually, right, by playing this Atari. White must connect, right? This stone is really important. You cannot afford to allow Black to capture it like this. This is simply too strong. This is radiating a lot of influence on the upper side and toward the center, and putting a lot of pressure on these 3 stones. So White must connect in this situation. And Black stands down here, making this descent. Really strong shape, no more flaws, right? There are 2 cutting points here, but there's nothing White can do. Nothing White can do here after number 15. And, of course, Black is also threatening to come into White's left side and destroy some territory. So this is a very good shape for Black. And White still has a wall on the outside, not as strong. You can follow up by playing toward the center, keeping Black down on the upper side here, number 16. But what White gets from this pattern is really the move that played away, right? So you have to make sure that playing away, in this case number 12, is more valuable than keep playing on the 3rd line here. So when the board is empty like this, usually we would say playing on the side here or this corner closer, or the approaches, or another 3-3 invasion is more valuable than playing on the third line and getting gote. Right now, black has sente, and black plays something more valuable. So there's a trade-off. But this is the first basic pattern that you need to learn, and this is the second basic pattern that you need to learn. Of course, there are many complications. For instance, black can cut this way, this Atari, and start a fight. And we can talk about that in a little bit. And if white wants to follow up, this extension is not the only move. There's also this hane that will lead to many complications. And that's something we're going to cover here as well. But for now, just remember this basic shape. White can take sente, and black can play number 13 and 15 as the follow-up. What are black's other options? Black can also play this small knight's move. So it's a peaceful way to proceed. Then this crawl, right? Because this crawl, again, both sides are occupying each other's liberties. But if you play here, it's less tight. And again, in this situation, white can take sente. And how does black follow up? Black plays this diagonal move on the third line. Because these two stones are still relatively weak. You cannot play on the fourth line yet. So just remember the correct move is playing here on the third line. But even after this move, white still has subsequent moves to try to keep black down. But this is the basic shape that you need to remember. And of course, white can follow up number 9 as well. There are all kinds of Josekis that white can explore after number 9. But we'll leave that to future videos. For now, you just need to remember that black can play at number 9, the small knight's move on the second line, very solid shape. White usually takes sente by adding a stone to the left side, or playing a corner closer, corner approaches, 3-3 invasions. I keep repeating these because in my beginner reviews, a lot of beginners neglect to play the obvious big moves on the board. And to follow up, black can play this diagonal move to finish the shape. But of course, in this situation, when the board is empty, any corner closer or approach or 3-3 invasion is more valuable than this diagonal move that finishes the shape. But nonetheless, it is a very big move in the opening. And it's something that you should know how to play, right? And it has to be here. It cannot be on the second line, cannot be here or here, because there's still a lot of weaknesses in black's shape that we'll talk about in future videos. What else is there? So now AI actually also suggests this move. So this obviously leaves this push and 2 cutting points. Black is very short on liberties. So white will have to cut on one side. White cuts on this side, then black must capture. You always must capture. You cannot just connect on one side and have this shape, right? This is not acceptable. Without capturing a stone, this shape is totally not acceptable for black. So black must capture, and in this situation, white will capture number 9 on the outside. Of course, depending on the ladder. The ladder doesn't work. This will still be a fight on the outside, and this is playable for both sides. The corner is already settled, there'll be a fight on the outside. If white cuts on the outside, like this, number 12, also makes sense, because this will go back to one of the Josekis we learned in the previous video, right? It's the equivalent to this hane and double hane. Number 8 and 10, black captures this stone on the outside and gives up the corner. So this is about even. So this will just go back, and we'll keep seeing Josekis that kind of go back to previous variations we already saw. It's just the sequences that are different. And the basic shape that finishes number 9, again, white can take sente. And to finish the shape, black will play right here on the second line, this diagonal move. Again, very solid move that takes care of all the weaknesses in black's shape. And this is considered better than this small knight's move and this diagonal move. So this is slightly worse than this. So that's why AI sometimes actually likes to jump out this way, knowing that white has other big moves to make. And when black finishes the shape with number 11, this is actually slightly better, according to AI. How does White follow-up. White doesn't have any push and cuts, right? Because number 11 already took care of major weakness here. The best thing White can do is keep playing the small knight's move on the outside. And of course, if White ignores it, Black also has this knight's move that can develop the upper side. So this will be a very key move for both sides after number 11. So what's the basic shape here? It's number 9, right? Jumping out after the extension. And if White takes sente, Black can play the diagonal move right here. So these are really the 3 choices after White's extension, A, B, and C. Lastly, for this video, let's talk about this knight's move for White. This is the most complicated, and for Black, there are really only 2 choices. One is to play this attachment on the second line, and this will lead to the most complicated Joseki, potentially, in the age of AI. So White will play here, right? You have to Hane, trying to keep Black in. Black cannot just pull back, right? This way, Black will be enclosed. So Black will have to play this kind of bumping move, keeping the pressure on White, and Black cuts. And this will lead to a super complicated variation that I'm not even sure I'll cover on this channel. Maybe I'll go through the basics. And that's really all I can do. Pretty sure professional players are still researching this Joseki as we speak. And there are hundreds. It's not an exaggeration. Literally hundreds of variations stemming from the fight that these moves will lead to. So it's going to be super complicated. But, right, sometimes like when you play online, your opponent is inviting you to play this Joseki by playing a number 8. So what if you're Black and you're nervous in the situation? You just bump here. And we'll go back to a familiar shape that we just saw earlier. And this is exactly the same as White playing here and the Hane later. Right? It plays here. If you want to avoid all that, just play here instead at the 3-5 point at number 9. And we'll go back. Right? So this is the most basic way to play this. When you get stronger, if you're feeling more adventurous, after you've done enough research on the most complicated Joseki in the age of AI, you can try out number 9 and play the sequence and have some fun. But for beginners and cube players, please do not venture into the unknown and just play this Joseki instead. As we already see, there are 2 ways to get to this shape. One is through White's extension first, and the other is through White's knight's move first. The idea is going to be the same once we get to the same shape. So that's it. These are the basic shapes we learned today. Top left, this is a very basic shape. If Black takes sente, then White can get to this shape on the upper right. And when Black plays the extension at the 4-5 point, then White has 2 ways to settle the shape, given that Black takes sente after White's response. So please remember these basic shapes, and in the next few videos in this section, I will go into detail on each of these variations. So please stay tuned. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. Best of luck, and thank you for watching.